Item number 10 is report on the status of Assembly Bill 2782 relating to the protection for residents of displaced by mobile home park closures.
Recent threats of park closure started happening in the city of Carson. There was a resident meeting where we found out that there was some state legislation that was pending where Assemblymember Stone was looking at passing legislation to clarify some issues related to mobile home park closures. When a park owner wants to close a park, then the city, the jurisdiction, the reviewing jurisdiction is required to process an application for a park closure, and the city can provide reasonable protections for the residents that deal with the cost of reasonable cost of relocating the residents. And up and down the state, mobile home park owners have argued reasonable cost of relocation means basically literally paying for mobile home units to be moved and relocation of personal belongings. Well, we all know that's kind of a ridiculous position for mobile home park owners to take because mobile homes are a misnomer. I mean, these units most of them are not mobile. A lot of them are from 1970s, and newer parks or other parks would not accept them. So, in adopting the city's park closure ordinance, one of the things that we advocated and has made it in the park closure ordinance is that we require the park owner in their tenant impact report to go through a series of steps, hire a relocation consultant, look at reasonable living areas within a certain radius. Residents argue, well, no, if we were going to sell our unit in the open market, we would get X dollars for it.
Madam City Attorney,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I just saw an interview that's almost 11 o'clock. And I know we got one more open item on the agenda, and we have 6 closed.
We're a little bit in trouble with our ordinance right now because the motion to extend is required.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I was in the middle of actually giving this report, I think 2 council meetings ago, when it became 11 o'clock and we ended the meeting. As the council is aware, you currently have a pending mobile home park closure within the city, and I believe there's another application filed by Park Avalon. That one is in the process of getting its appraisal done and completed. And in addition, we have been informed that Rancho Dominguez owner has looked at closing that park. And there was a lot of sham conversions that were happening, which were attempts by park owners to escape rent control, because under that law, once you sold one unit, one of the subdivided units, then rent control went away, and residents would be at the mercy of high rents, and potentially a park owner could try to change the demographics of the park, and they could sit on their park conversion approval and never really change the use of the park, but then force high rents, market rents upon the residents. And this council authorized my office to work very closely with Senator Jackson back then on SB 510, and we drafted legislation that closed a loophole that state law had, which allowed for park owners to engage in the tactics that they were. And as the council is aware, many jurisdictions had folded when they were forced to convert the parks, and this city was the only city that did not fold. The council protected its mobile home park residents, and all of those conversion lawsuits went away. So the new trend now is for park owners to try to change the use of the park. And there's another government code section 66427.4, where it allows a park owner to come to a city and file what we call a park closure application. And in a park closure application, a park owner says, I want to change the use of my park. Under the law, a city's rights are limited to looking at reasonable cost of relocation. And the statute provides that a city can look at reasonable cost of relocation and impose conditions to make sure residents are receiving reasonable cost of relocation. Well, park owners have argued that reasonable cost of relocation means paying for the mobile home unit to be moved into another park and paying for a relocation consultant to move the mobile home park tenants' personal belongings to another mobile home park. And there has been years of litigation up and down the state, and I think most cases have settled. Cities, again, just end up folding and settling. There have been cases where cities have said, okay, well, we think reasonable relocation also includes paying a subsidy for mobile home park tenants to be able to transition into another space where rents are at market rent. A lot of park owners try to give just the scrap value, like $10,000 for some of the older mobile home parks. They'll argue because they're not, the fair market value is just the value of the unit. And so they argue that the value is $5,000, $6,000. There have been cases where park owners have actually argued tenants need to pay them for moving the units because, as we all know, these units are not easily movable, one. And two, some of the older units, parks won't accept them. So even if you can move some of the older units, mobile home parks don't like the older units, so they don't allow those units to go to their park. So the city, if you recall, we went through a series of studies to look at our municipal code to see within the bounds of state law without creating legal liability to the city, what are the best protections we can put in place for our residents. And the result of those workshops was that we decided, because our ordinance, like our rent control ordinance, is one of the most stringent ordinances in the state and allows for a number of factors for a legislative body to consider in ruling on these applications, that it was best to not change our ordinance, not to allow it to become subject to an as-applied challenge by a park owner that would say, well, you change your ordinance, and then they would tie us up in litigation because every time you make a major modification to your ordinance, it becomes a matter of a lawsuit. And Will Constantine, who represents GSMOL, who is a well and reputable park resident attorney, we hired him as our expert. And after he did his analysis, his conclusion was that our ordinance is actually the most restrictive in the state and that he liked it. He made recommendations that the city consider creating mobile home park zones, which we are. That has nothing to do with our ordinance. We're doing that as part of our general plan update, and Mr. Naste has been actively working on that, because then every time a park owner wants to close the park, they would have to seek a discretionary act of the city council to see whether the city wants to amend its general plan once you have them, or allow that zone change. So that's already in process, but two factors that make these park closure applications really troubling is, one, it impacts cities' affordable housing units. I mean, City of Carson, in our general plan, we've identified mobile home parks as a source of affordable housing within the city, and we have a general plan goal to protect our affordable housing units. So when there was a bill that had been introduced last year by Assemblymember Stone, So it had failed. It had not even passed the housing committee. Once we became aware that that bill was pending, and this council body demanded that we get involved. And if you recall, you gave direction for my office to contact Assembly Stone and offer City of Carson's resources to assist in the bill. We did that, and Ben Jones of my office and myself flew up to Sacramento, met with Assembly Stone's chief of staff and their lobbyists, and GSMOL president and their lobbyists, and you know, through those back and forth, we helped them draft AB 2782, which does a few things that really bring a lot of great discretion to cities to analyze these park closure applications. One of the things that the new law that we've drafted requires is that in assessing whether to grant or deny a park closure application, the City Council now can look at the impact on its affordable housing demands that the state puts on it. And if it's going to negatively impact your affordable housing stock, now you have discretion to deny these park closure applications. That is something that currently doesn't exist in the law. It is a critical tool to allow cities to make sure they are preserving affordable housing and protecting their affordable housing units, and to protect their most vulnerable residents who need these affordable housings. Another thing that the law does, it strikes out the sentence that has been the subject of litigation up and down the state on park closures. It gets rid of the sentence that basically says, and the city shall look at reasonable cost of relocation. We believe the City Council should have great discretion in assessing other factors such as general plan consistency, such as whether the appraised, maybe you want to impose fair market value, that if a park owner wants to close a park, they have to pay fair market value of the units. We are hopeful that the governor will sign it into law. Once it's signed into law, it will be applicable to any and all new applications that are filed within the city. And so that concludes my report. Sorry that it was long, but a lot has happened.
We made new law. I mean, we meaning that as a team, your legal team made new laws.
Yes, the City of Carson has positively impacted developments in the mobile home park laws, pro-resident laws in 4 published opinions and through state legislation. Yes. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I would be remiss if I don't thank Ben Jones one more time. I mean, I know that a lot of you know Ben as the Assistant City Attorney. I just want to express how grateful I am as to how much time he took to diligently draft a bill that would provide all the protections that are needed, but yet it would be in a temperament, and it would be in a fashion that would so smoothly fly through the assembly. This is a bill that, mind you, a year ago got killed at the Housing Authority. Housing Committee, the committee that should have supported the bill. And Ben diligently worked, and he would take comments from GSMOL, he would take comments from the assembly member and concerns that we would have as a city, and he was able to create the language in this bill that provides the maximum protections. And so thank you, Ben. I just had to say that. Thank you for allowing me to thank him publicly.
Well, let me say thank you, Madam City Attorney. I think that what we've been able to do as a city, supporting this from the very beginning, and then directing you to get engaged, is what has brought the bill, as you indicated, to where it is now. And residents throughout the entire state are going to benefit by our wise decision and your hard work. So thank you.
In some circumstances, elected officials, we do pat ourselves on the back for good work, but I want to emphasize this was an effort of the entire city council. It takes 5 people, elected officials on the city council, to move things like this forward. And these resolutions came from the entire city council.
The Government's a Sunshine Project is brought to you by Charles Thomas for Carson City Council 2020. I'm Charles Thomas, and I approve of this message.